We say Alexa for your small business. What we do is we connect to software services tools like QuickBooks and Stripe, aggregate them into a data warehouse so that they can be available just through natural language apps. So questions that you would typically ask an HR person or a CFO, you can just ask Olli. So things like, how much do we owe that vendor, or what's left in a budget? When's the last time we paid that person? When's the last time somebody paid us? You can get quick answers from it. That's what we've actually dealt with most of our careers, is that there wasn't access to the data. So everyone sort of had to just make guesses.
Business, you cannot make the guesses. You need to be based on data.
But a lot of small businesses operate in that way.
Yeah.
And there's just all of this room for optimization and increased productivity, not through doing anything but giving people all the information so that they can make better decisions.
Hello everyone, welcome to this another episode about AI insights here in San Francisco. Today I'm with Michael. He is an incredible entrepreneur, has a lot of experience about AI and entrepreneurship. What is Olli?
Olli is the first trick you learn on a skateboard, but it's also the name of our company. We're OLY AI. And what we do is we connect to software services tools like QuickBooks and Stripe, all the tools of a small business, and we aggregate them into a data warehouse so that they can be available just through natural language apps. So questions that you would typically ask an HR person or a CFO, you can just ask Olli. So things like, how much do we owe that vendor, or what's left in a budget? When's the last time we paid that person? When's the last time somebody paid us? How many PTO days you have left?
It's like a ChatGPT for a company, for your company.
Yeah. We actually, we say Alexa for your small business.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what is the story about skateboard and your company besides the name? I think there's more things there, right?
Oh, yeah. So I used to be the head of technology for professional skateboarding, the Street League skateboarding. And when I was at Street League, my office was next to the CFO's office. And, you know, as I'm trying to do my job on a daily basis, people would line up outside of his office and they would eventually come into my office. And this would happen all day. And I'd ask people, what are you doing? They'd tell me, oh, I'm waiting for the CFO. I need to ask him what's left in this budget. I'm waiting for the CFO. I need to know if we can get catering. I need to know if he paid this vendor. The CEO would come and sit in my office. What's going on? It's like, yeah, I got to know what our cash flow is and how many months of runway before we need to start raising again. So I would constantly hear all of these questions and I could physically see the problem. So I went to the CFO and I asked him, I'm like, hey, what can we do here? How can we improve this? And he explained that it was just a problem for all kinds of small businesses. So I suggested building something, and that was the origin of OLY AI. So the Olli is sort of a homage to our old company where we came up with the idea.
That's amazing. And now you're able to integrate multiple databases for a company. What kind of integrations that you offer for a company?
I would probably phrase it in the way that most enterprises have something called a data warehouse or a data mart. And that's like one central database that you can aggregate all of these data sources to. So, you know, big enterprises will be able to take things like ad revenue and impressions and all these things and put it in one database. So that's this general concept that we're trying to offer to the small business that usually doesn't have a sophisticated data team to do those sorts of things. So right now we are focused on all of the tools of the back office, QuickBooks, Stripe, Square, Gusto. So these are kind of the integrations that we're working on now.
Okay, and then I can imagine have multiple data points, multiple databases to connect everything together and be able to teach the machines. It is very challenging to integrate everything for a small business. Sometimes they don't have enough data to be able to train it. How is your challenges building this?
We started this project a few years ago when we first built the POC. We were building off of the Google Assistant ecosystem. So Google has an API called the Actions API. And we initially built a Google Action and an Alexa skill. And as we built those tools, the challenges were really this thing called entity extraction and topic extraction. So when you think about a small business, they have an individual set of vendors and customers that are different from another business. So the first challenge was really trying to be able to scale a product that could understand what the user is saying and match it appropriately. And if they have a new customer name, that was a challenge in the beginning. So when LLM started to become commoditized, that was a real breakthrough moment for us where we realized that the Google ecosystem wasn't going to evolve enough for us to be able to make a magical experience and a commercial product. But it also kind of gave way to us being able to use an LLM with our own custom model. And the integration of those two things, NLP with an LLM, is something that has really given us a lot more room to build much more magical experiences. But initially, those challenges were trying to find a way to understand everyone's specific vendor lists, customer lists, general ledger items, charts of accounts, which now we've kind of evolved to. And now we have a different set of problems. We focus on a natural language processing layer, and we use LLMs to augment that or kind of improve all of the queries. But there's oftentimes that these language models, whether it be Gemini or anything from OpenAI,
right,
they're still so nascent that being able to test every scenario of what's going to happen, the repeatability, which is a fundamental of engineering or software engineering, it's really challenging because the consistency of these tools is not always 100%.
Right.
You try a query on Monday and then try the same query on Thursday.
You're going to change.
Yeah, sometimes you get a different answer.
Different answer, yeah.
Yeah. The way in which we use these LLMs many times are not just on its surface as we're prompt engineering, but we may be using the LLM to, for instance, validate that the question the answer is fulfilling what the original question was. So from Monday to Friday, if that underlying foundational model changes what it does, sometimes we have to adjust our product to the underlying foundational model. So it's one of these things where I think a lot of startups are kind of identifying that when you're using an external tool or an external service, you
might vary.
Yeah, you lose a bit of control. And with that control, you can lose quality sometimes. So
and trust.
Yeah. And a lot of startups, I think, are now considering where they need to internalize the model versus just using the commoditized services model. And we're in that place right now. So the challenges are really understanding where we need to build our own model to accommodate that or where we can use something externally.
Oh, I see. Makes sense. And what kind of questions the business are asking for the LLM?
We get a lot of things around these routines that small businesses have, like reconciliation. So every month, you may have a series of invoices, and you want to know who's paid their invoices, and you want to know who hasn't paid their invoices. So right now, we see a lot of focus on just clever ways for us to expedite that whole process so that they can quickly identify who owes them money still and how they can go and reach out to those people without spending so much time on just trying to reconcile which invoices are current and which invoices are overdue. Outside of that, we're actually also seeing a lot of interest in budgets to actuals, because most businesses will reconcile their books after the month is closed. So often people will go over budget. There'll be these over allocations that they only realize a couple weeks after the fact. So there's nothing they can do in the moment to actually adjust their spending. So with Olli, we're actually giving people real-time visibility of these things, which allows them to say, okay, well, our travel and entertainment budget is, $10,000. We've got 2 more months left in this budget, and we've already spent $6,000.
Oh.
So time to either slow down or start just getting coach seats or, whatever you need to do. But budgets to actuals has been another really big interest for us.
Yeah, because I understand, me as a data analyst, those questions come to me. I need to do this manually. I need to go there and see everything that you just mentioned. I need to see if it is possible or is not possible, to see if maybe predict the future data. But this costs for business, right? This is all cost to have someone doing this right now. But if you're able to automate that to a certain level that a small business can have it, this is very, very important.
Yeah, and it's a cost in 2 ways. It's the cost in, asking someone to actually do that task for you, and the other cost of not asking someone to do that task for you and just guessing and getting it wrong and either spending too much or over ordering or any number of things that you can do when you're just guesstimating anything that's in your business. So that's what we've actually dealt with most of our careers, is that there wasn't access to the data. So everyone sort of had to just make guesses on what.
Because you cannot make the guesses, you need to be based on data.
Yeah, you do. But a lot of small businesses operate in that way.
Yeah.
And there's just all of this room for optimization and increased productivity, not through doing anything but giving people all the information so that they can make better decisions.
I see. And what are the things that they ask for the system that you're not prepared for the answer, or they ask things way off that is supposed to?
Yeah, it's funny. We do have this. You can speak or type to our system, and we can see the inputs that don't match sometimes, and we try and record these so that we can catch up and maybe build things around them.
Right.
But what we found is that people have come to understand these things in the way that ChatGPT has taught them. So the way that they prompt us sometimes is very much like a generative prompt would work. I would like to see a pie chart of all of my users, and the ones that are the people that buy blue shirts versus red shirts, and they'll give a large prompt that articulates a vision of what they want to see sometimes, rather than specifically asking a metric question. So we've now had to sort of learn that we need to adapt to that as well, which is again why we leverage LLMs along with natural language processing. We have this thing, some people refer to it as a mixture of experts, where we identify what's the user want first. And as we do, we can send them down a decision tree to which model is most appropriate for that type of question. And oftentimes we do have to lead them down a more generative answer because they've asked something that's quite generative versus asking something that's formulaic. Yeah.
You have been working for different companies, larger companies, and you started doing this way early about LLMs and applications. Can you just go back and talk about the background, how you got into this product?
I've been building software for 15 years. And many years ago, I built an application for the Kraft Foods company. It was called the Kraft iFoods Assistant. And the iFood Assistant was really ahead of its time. It was this application where you could scan the barcodes of all the things within your refrigerator, and it would suggest recipes for you to cook that night. If you didn't have all the ingredients, it would tell you the nearest store and the best deal to get, and it would allow you to apply coupons. And it was really, really cool app, but it had one specific feature that was a hands-free cooking feature. So once you had the recipe and all the ingredients, you could place your phone or your tablet, on your kitchen counter, and then talk to it and say, set timer, next step, last step. We're putting in the broccoli. And this was 10 years ago. So we didn't have any of the tools that we have today. We heavily relied on a tool called Nuance. And we were just so early on that even things like broccoli were really difficult for us to do. So even though it was set timer and next step and last step, we had to really work quite hard on it. But that was my first natural language application. And then after that, I built something for the Madison Square Garden Corporation, which was, tell me what's playing at the Garden tonight. And these were like Google Actions and Alexa skills. But that's initially how I got into voice, was just doing these kind of large corporate projects.
You are from New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
Recently you moved to LA and then start to build your product there, build your company there. What makes you come here to San Francisco?
I had some friends that worked in AI, and they would come visit me down in LA. And anytime they would visit, I realized that those were the most exciting conversations I would have in weeks. And most of the other times, I would be the person that people were excited to talk to about AI. And while that's really cool, there wasn't a lot that I was able to learn when I'm the most knowledgeable person in the room about AI. So when I got to San Francisco just a couple months ago, it was immediately evident that almost everyone is working on something related to this booming field. And there are brilliant people on all sides of you that are working on different aspects of this industry, this new nascent industry. And there's tons to learn from all these people. So I think that was the material difference that made me feel really compelled to move up here and be around such an exciting new thing that's really concentrated here in the Bay.
And going back to your company, what is the new features that you're thinking you're developing or you want to launch soon for Olli?
We think that as we go into the summer, right now, a lot of the things that we are working on are about looking at historical data. And it's about telling you and servicing information really quickly so that you can get answers. But there's a whole field of being able to give people insights. Predict and start to forwardly look at those things. So a big tenet for us is security. Small businesses, bookkeepers, fractional CFOs, a lot of them have to adhere to certain regulations like SOC 2. And with that, it means that there has to be an audit trail for where all the private data, the company's data is going. So for that reason, we don't ever train or share the company's private data with an external model. So for this reason, what we'll probably do over the summer is internalize our own LLM so that we can then use that to start to do this analysis. So I think that's where we start to head to next, is trying to give people a little bit of foresight into what's coming next or suggestions into the business.
So we have a lot of data. We have a lot of people that have this access for this data, but how you manage the level of people that can see a couple of things, that cannot see other things, how you manage that?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning before, we have this mixture of models approach to things. And our first layer is a natural language processing model, where we understand what the user's utterance is, and then through that utterance, we're able to extract the vendor names, the customer names, the GL items, or any modifiers like biggest, latest, soonest. And when we're doing that, we can assign a role to each of the users within the system, whether that's manager, owner, administrator, department head. And when we're able to assign that, we can also attach the vendors or the GL items that specific role can see. So if you're a manager, you're managing a series of vendors and a series of customers, we can make it that you can access all of those customers and all of those vendors. But if you were to ask about payroll, that's not available to you. So
right.
Yeah, we just permission it off so that people can ask only specific questions. And that's why it's really important to kind of use this natural language processing layer that allows us to have a lot of control over it. Whereas with the LLMs, we have a lot less control with what we can permission.
Do you think Olli is going to replace bookkeepers, or what's your thought about it?
We get this question a lot from people that we talk to, bookkeepers and fractional CFOs. And no is the short answer. We're designing this tool specifically to amplify people. It's really important that there's still someone that oversees the books, someone that's still responsible for how the finances of a business work or how the HR department works. But amplifying someone and allowing that person to be able to oversee these tools so that information can flow very fluidly throughout an organization is ultimately what we're after. We think that building off of data-driven cultures inside of a business where people can use data to make their decisions ultimately makes everybody better and everybody more productive and optimized. But replacing someone is not what we're after. And we think it's a really important tenet of a lot of what software developers should be thinking about through this cycle. Because these tools, again, they can be built in a way to really amplify what is already there within someone, to be able to scale one person that may have a bottleneck of all these people trying to ask them questions, but them not having the time. I think it's one advantage actually that small businesses may have over enterprises at this point, because within an enterprise, you have all of these silos of different departments and different roles and responsibilities that often can be a bit of friction for someone to take on that role. Right. But at a small company, you've really got a lot of very highly aligned people that are just trying to get things done. And if information can flow very readily between all of those people, then everyone can work towards the same goal and know what the bottom line is or what's really going to impact the business. So yeah, we don't think we're going to replace anybody. We hope not to replace anybody. In fact, we hope to champion that idea of product development.
Because I imagine for small companies, you need to wear multiple hats or do multiple things. And then what I can understand is you're basically making this department more creative, more smart.
Yeah. Most small companies don't have a full-time bookkeeper, CFO, or HR person. So a lot of times the owner of the business or the manager of the business will have to wear all of these hats at once. And everyone knows if that manager or that owner is dealing with another problem, that it's not a good time to ask them about their PTO days or to ask them about their deductible or to ask them any number of questions that might be information that's helpful to the business. So by being able to allow them to ask a third-party agent or Olli AI, we're really allowing for that information to just flow wherever it needs to flow, people to get answers, and again, use data as much as they can in the business to optimize things and ultimately have better outcomes.
So what is the ideal company that you're targeting, or ideal industry you're targeting right now?
We're actually agnostic to the type of company because GAAP accounting, this general accounting practices, this principle is universal to all companies. So when you look at the foundation of companies, when it comes to bookkeeping, accounting, as well as HR, that's quite universal, no matter what type of company. So for the time being, in this phase of the company, we really just try and focus on a small business. So under 500 people that use QuickBooks, Gusto, Stripe, Square to operate their business. And as long as they use those tools, the data is consistent for us to be able to answer any of the things that they may have in those systems.
All right. And if there's a company that want to try your applications, how they do that right now?
Yeah. So they head to our website, which is www.OLY.AI. And we are in beta right now. So our service is free to try. They just need to have a QuickBooks account, connect their QuickBooks account, and then they can begin asking questions. It takes about 5 minutes to set up.
Now think about the future about AI. You have experience working before. You're doing specific decisions in your company, best way to approach challenges. How you see AI in 5 to 10 years?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Mostly because it's hard to understand how government, how society will adopt these tools. I think that there's a lot of risk, and that's often things that people don't like to talk about when we talk about this subject. But whether that risk be what this is going to do to our job economy, what this is going to do to global political dynamics, what it's going to do to media, it's all very hard to see what those things could attribute to the growth of this industry. But I'd imagine that we're going to see a lot more productivity. We're going to see a lot of tools that enable all types of extensions of what people could do today. As an example, I've tried to write a screenplay a couple of times, just as a creative exercise that I thought was fun. And I've gotten a couple things in the Google Doc, but recently I started using this tool called Saga. I think it's writesaga.com. And it's a generative tool that allows me to enter in information and kind of craft my story. But when I don't know exactly what to write, it suggests a couple ideas. But it gives me a format that I continue to just enrich with all of the things that I want to craft into the story.
I can imagine people had everything in their minds, but to transfer all this knowledge into something like a sort of a video or a photo or a design, some people they have really challenges to even just say how to do that. But depends of how you're able to transfer the personal knowledge into something like this, like you mentioned. That's a very, very good very good way.
Yeah, and refine it. I think that's the really fun part is that, when I work through this tool, I may throw out 80-90% of what it gives me, but it's constantly sort of pushing my idea forward by the fact that I have this cooperative writing kind of a partner in doing that. So I think that's going to be this thing that's really, really helpful for a whole generation of people to start getting their ideas out and really expressing them.
Thank you for watching this episode and stay tuned for the next one.